My name is Hannah Collins. I'm 29 from Brooklyn, New York. I always believed loyalty was unshakable, especially when it came to my best friend, Clara. She was more than a friend. She was family, my chosen sister. But last month, I opened an envelope that changed everything. Inside were photographs, proof of nights I never imagined, and whispers of betrayal I couldn't unhear. Clara hadn't just crossed a line. She'd invaded my marriage, stolen my husband's affection, and shattered the only bond I swore would never break. Now, love feels like poison and trust feels like a graveyard. Backhand index pointing right, watch closely. This isn't just betrayal. It's the kind of revenge story you'll never forget. I used to think betrayal came like thunder, loud, dramatic, impossible to ignore. But in my life, it arrived quietly, folded inside a cream-colored envelope that someone slipped under my apartment door. No name, no note, just photographs. I sat on the couch, hands trembling as I pulled them out one by one. My husband, Ethan, smiling in candlelight. Clara's hand on his cheek. A kiss that should have belonged to me, captured in the cruel stillness of a camera flash. Each image was a knife, cutting through years of friendship, love, and loyalty. Clara, my Clara. The girl who used to braid my hair during sleepovers. The woman who held my hand when my father died. The one who toasted me on my wedding day with tears in her eyes. How could she have been kissing Ethan while pretending to be my sister in spirit? I couldn't breathe. My chest felt heavy, my hands numb. Ethan had always told me late meetings were part of his law firm job, that exhaustion was why he came home drained. Now I saw the truth. He wasn't exhausted from work. He was exhausted from living two lives. But betrayal doesn't just kill trust, it kills innocence. That night I didn't scream, didn't confront him, didn't send angry texts to Clara. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the Brooklyn skyline flicker with 1,000 indifferent lights. Inside me, something colder than anger began to grow. Because betrayal doesn't end with discovery, it begins there. And I wasn't about to let Clara or Ethan walk away unscarred. The next morning, Ethan kissed my forehead as if nothing had changed. His lips felt heavy, like lead pressed against glass, fragile and ready to shatter. I stared at him, memorizing every lie stitched into his smile, every false promise hiding behind his eyes. Long day ahead, he said, grabbing his briefcase. Long day, another excuse, another night maybe with her. As the door closed, my phone buzzed. A message from Clara, coffee today, I miss you. Miss me? The audacity clawed at my chest. I typed back, sure, noon at Riverside Cafe. When she arrived, wearing the same pastel pink scarf I'd given her for her birthday, my stomach knotted. She looked radiant, glowing even. The glow of stolen intimacy, of secrets she thought were safe. We sat across from each other, steaming mugs between us. I forced a smile, and she returned it with ease, as if she hadn't set fire to my world. So, how are you? She asked, tilting her head like the friend she used to be. I studied her face, searching for cracks for guilt. But she was polished, practiced, almost perfect. Almost. I'm fine, I whispered. But inside my voice screamed, you liar, you thief, you traitor. Her phone lit up, and for one brief second, Ethan's name flashed across the screen. My pulse roared in my ears, but I stayed still, sipping my coffee, playing the fool she thought I was. That's when the decision formed, sharp, deliberate, undeniable. If she could betray me so effortlessly, I would repay her with a betrayal of my own. Not reckless, not loud, but precise like a surgeon with a scalpel. Clara reached across the table, touching my hand. You know I'll always be here for you. I forced a smile so wide it almost hurt. I know, I replied softly. And in that moment my revenge began, not with rage, but with patience. Because sometimes the deadliest plans grow in silence. That night I stood at the window, watching the rain streak down the glass like broken veins. Ethan was late again. Every second stretched into an accusation, every tick of the clock whispered his betrayal louder. When his car finally pulled into the driveway, I forced my breath steady. He walked in, tie loosened, hair messy, eyes filled with the kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work. I wanted to scream, Instead, I smiled. "Long day?" I asked gently. "Yeah," he muttered, dropping his keys on the counter. "Meetings ran over." Meetings? I bit my tongue until I tasted iron. Clara had posted a photo on her story hours earlier. Wine glasses, dim lights, the corner of his jacket sleeve I knew too well. I let the silence linger, heavy, suffocating. He didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. Later, as he slept beside me, his chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm, I stared at him. The man who promised forever. The man who destroyed my sister's life with whispers in the dark. But here, what Ethan didn't know, I had begun documenting everything. Every message, every photo, every late-night lie. Screenshots tucked away in secret folders, recordings saved on hidden drives. Evidence. Because betrayal wasn't just about broken hearts, it was about power. And soon, the power would shift. The next morning, Clara texted me again. "Lunch today?" Her casual tone made me laugh bitterly. She thought she had won. She thought I was blind. I replied simply, "Of course." Only this time, I wasn't going to sit quietly across the table. I was going to move the first piece in a game neither of them knew had already begun. As I got dressed, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in weeks, I didn't see the shattered woman Ethan and Clara had created. I saw someone sharper, stronger, someone dangerous. And I whispered to myself, "You're not the victim anymore, Hannah. You're the storm." Clara arrived at the cafe first, her smile sweet, almost innocent, if I hadn't known the truth. She waved at me like nothing had happened, like she hadn't stolen nights that weren't hers to take. I slid into the chair opposite her, my hands wrapped around the coffee cup as if for warmth, though inside I was ice. "So, how are you?" she asked, tilting her head. Her voice dripped with false sincerity, and I almost laughed. "I'm fine," I replied smoothly. "Better than ever, actually." Her eyes flickered just for a second, a crack in her confidence. "Good," I leaned forward. "You look tired though, Clara, long nights." She froze just enough for me to notice. Then she forced a laugh. "Work! Been insane, you know how it is." I let the silence sharpen between us. My phone buzzed in my lap, an email from the private investigator I'd hired last week. More photos, more proof. Ethan's hand brushing Clara's shoulder outside a hotel. A kiss stolen in shadows. Every lie now immortalized in pixels. I didn't show her, not yet. Instead, I smiled and sipped my coffee. "Funny, Ethan's been working late too. What a coincidence." Her cheeks flushed, and for the first time she couldn't meet my eyes. Victory hummed beneath my skin. As I left the cafe, the city felt different, sharper, brighter, like the world had shifted in my favor. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was hunting. That night, I slipped the printed photos into a sealed envelope and tucked it into my desk drawer. A weapon waiting to be used. Ethan still thought I was blind. Clara still thought I was weak. But soon, they would both see. Because betrayal carves scars, yes, but it also teaches you how to fight without mercy. And I had just begun sharpening my blade. The envelope in my drawer pulsed like a heartbeat every time I passed it. Proof, power, revenge wrapped in paper. Ethan came home late again, his tie loosened, the faint scent of perfume clinging to him like a confession. I didn't ask. I didn't argue. I simply set dinner on the table and smiled. Let him believe I was still blind. But that night, as he showered, I unlocked his phone. The passcode hadn't changed. Arrogance made people careless. Within seconds, I was scrolling through messages. "Clara, last night was perfect. Can't wait for the next." My stomach twisted, but instead of tears, I felt steel harden inside me. I forwarded every message to my private account. Evidence upon evidence, each word a nail in the coffin of his lies. When I put the phone back, Ethan walked out, towel around his waist, humming like a man with nothing to hide. I almost pitied him, almost. The next morning, I went to work early, a manila folder tucked under my arm. Inside, the photographs, the screenshots, the timeline of deceit. I slid it into my office safe, locked it tight. My colleagues saw only the calm, smiling Hannah who led meetings and cracked jokes. None of them saw the storm I carried in silence. At lunch, I received another message from Clara. "Can we meet again?" I typed back quickly, "Not yet. Soon." My hands trembled, not from fear, but anticipation. Revenge wasn't about shouting or breaking. It was about timing, about patience, about watching your betrayers walk confidently toward the cliff you've built for them. That night, I watched Ethan sleep again, his face softened by dreams. I studied the curve of his jaw, the hand that once held mine with devotion, the lips that whispered vows now tainted by lies. And I whispered into the dark, "Your time is running out." Because the storm wasn't coming anymore. I was the storm. The day of reckoning came on a quiet Sunday morning. Ethan thought he was heading to brunch with me, a sweet attempt to reconnect. Clara thought she was meeting me for coffee. Neither of them knew I had orchestrated the same destination for us all. The restaurant buzzed with weekend chatter when they both arrived, separately, but minutes apart. Ethan's smile faltered when he saw Clara sitting at the table. Clara's face paled when she realized this wasn't a casual catch-up. And I, sitting calmly between them, slid 2 identical envelopes across the table. "Open them," I said softly. Inside, every photograph, every text, every late-night lie lay exposed. Ethan's jaw clenched, Clara's hands shook. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. "You didn't just betray me," I whispered, my voice steady. "You betrayed blood, trust, and every promise we ever made." Ethan stammered. Clara tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "Save your excuses. You've already spoken enough lies." I stood, leaving them with their shame, their evidence, their mess. As I walked out, the weight on my chest finally lifted. For weeks, I had carried the poison of betrayal. Now I had poured it back into their veins. Later, at home, I burned the last copy of their messages. I didn't need them anymore. Their own guilt would be enough to haunt them long after I was gone. I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I had survived the storm, and in the process, I had become it. And for the first time in a long time, I breathed freely. The chapter of betrayal was closed. But the story of Hannah, the woman who refused to be destroyed, was just beginning.